Alhamdulillah. The wonderful Marines made way for him to follow in their footsteps. Next one we're going to have, this will be our last speaker, United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Nasheed Deen. He's with the 22nd Air Guard. He's in domestic ops. And he joined in 1990. He's based in Maryland right now. He enlisted first 4 years. Then he became commissioned Lieutenant Colonel. He's a colonel. So that's again, we're going from being positioned as property to being in prominent positions in the same land that oppressed us. I bring to you, ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Colonel Nasheed Deen.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على خاتم النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وعلى صحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum. It is truly an honor and a privilege to be here today in front of you to share the stage with such distinguished gentlemen, Brother Command Sergeant Major Sultan Mohammed. He and I spoke right before, and I was certainly inspired by his story and where he came from and where he is today. Tremendous blessing. Imam Sharif, alhamdulillah, it's just a blessing to be in contact with brothers like that. And I had the privilege of speaking briefly with our brother Wallace Deen Mohammed II. Thank you for that opportunity to speak briefly with you. I respect what you've done and established and continuing the legacy of your father. Alhamdulillah, thank you very much. So I'm going to speak to you briefly. I'm going to talk about growing up in the community and my parents dragging me along to these conventions every year as a young man and the opportunity I have now in terms of my service. So really briefly, my father, Imam Nasheed Salahuddin, was a minister in the Nation of Islam back in Louisiana. And he actually obviously accepted Orthodox Islam in 1975 under the leadership of Imam Mohammed. And me and my brothers and sisters, there's 7 of us, we really didn't know what was going on because we grew up in an area with a lot of Christians. So at the time, we had this funny name, Salahuddin. And my brothers and sisters joked and clowned and talked about, well, if you could change your name to a quote regular name, what would it be? I'll talk later in my story about the significance of that name that my father chose, Salahuddin. So again, I grew up in the community. I went to Sister Clara Muhammad schools, and then after graduating from high school, spent a year in college, but I wasn't that serious of a student. So my father came to me and said, I'm taking away your parent-funded scholarship. You're going to have to figure out something else to do. So I'd always, sort of been intrigued by the Air Force. So at that time, I joined the Air Force. I enlisted in the Air Force. And spent 4 years active duty in the Air Force. And actually had the privilege and honor of spending 6 months in Saudi Arabia and making Umrah during that time. And then I was invited back to go back to Hajj. So alhamdulillah, at the age of 21, I had the honor of making Hajj as a very young man. Let me fast forward to sort of current situation. So about 2 years ago, I got a call from my general, and he said, Lieutenant Colonel Salahuddin, you'll be going to Iraq for a 6-month deployment. So I said, sir, well, what am I going to be doing? And he told me whatever needs to be done. So let me talk about that for 1 second and how that connects to us as a community. So he told me, you're going to do whatever needs to be done. So how that connects to us as a community is that we play, I believe, a leadership role in this society, not just amongst Muslims, but as an example to everybody. So whenever we get called on, whether it be me, as a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, or the obligations that we have, or the vision regardless of what our role is, our rank, or what our responsibilities are. So I packed up my bags and went to Louisiana, Fort Polk, Louisiana, for a 2-month training that prepared me for my responsibilities in Iraq. Deployed over to Iraq and got some more details about what my responsibilities are. So I was in charge of a team that was responsible for helping the Iraqis to improve efficiency and security at their borders. I was blessed to have a very talented group of people on my team from every branch of the military. I had engineers from the Navy, I had Marines on my team, I had a number of Air Force personnel on my team, in addition to Army on my team. I also had people from U.S. Department of Homeland Security that helped with border security. Honestly, it was just a blessing because my background wasn't necessarily in security, but I was blessed and I was fortunate with the team who had that capability. So again, our responsibility was to help the Iraqis to improve security at their borders. We had to work with senior level Iraqi Ministry of Interior people, in addition to the generals. And I remember my first meeting with their head general for borders. When he saw my name, and he looked at me and said, "Salahuddin?" I'm like, where the heck did you come from? So if you don't know, in terms of history, Salahuddin, or as they call it, Saladin in Western history, was actually from Iraq. And there's a city, an area in northern Iraq that's actually named after him. I will tell you, that same name, Salahuddin, that I didn't want when I was a youngster, helped me tremendously as I met with these senior level Iraqi officials. So even people who are higher ranking than me, even generals, they had less influence than I had. They wanted to talk to me because I shared this name and I shared this religion. It opened up so many doors in terms of what my responsibility was for the Iraqis. So one of the things that we had to do, the United States built a number of new border facilities for the Iraqis, multi-million-dollar facilities. So we traveled around the country to look at what needs to be done with these border facilities. And one of the main issues is that along the Iraqi borders, power is something that's hard to get because their power grid is not like the power grid in the United States. Well, one of the biggest issues is that the United States government really didn't want the Iraqis to use Iranian power. So many of their border ports, they had to use Iranian power because it was frankly, more secure. The United States wanted them to use Iraqi power, but frankly, Iraqi power wasn't that good. So one of my responsibilities was to sort of negotiate and figure out how we could best get that done. So what I did was I met with the Iraqi officials and I basically told them, look, here are your interests, here's the United States interests. But at that time, we were sort of transitioning. And what I told the Iraqi generals is, look, this is your country. We're going to give you advice. We have certain interests. But you have to do what's in the best interest of your country. I can't make you take Iranian power. But if you think that that's what's in your best interest, you do what you have to do. So alhamdulillah, we were fortunate in being able to meet with them, and that's what they chose to do. And we were able to successfully accomplish our mission in allowing them to build those facilities. Now, think about, again, the background that I have, the influence that I had with this government and where I came from. As the brother mentioned, we were once slaves. So to have an opportunity where I was the representative of the United States to the Iraqi officials in terms of advising them and allowing the tens of thousands of U.S. military people to transition out by giving them advice, training, and equipment to be able to secure themselves, I really thank Allah for that blessing. Alhamdulillah. So, as I conclude, I want to leave you with a couple